President Bola Tinubu has stressed the need for Africa to take a comprehensive approach to combating terrorism and address the root causes of the scourge, including poverty, inequality, and social injustice. Speaking at the African High-Level Meeting on Counterterrorism in Abuja, President Tinubu called for the establishment of a regional counterterrorism center that will serve as a hub for intelligence sharing, operational coordination, and capacity building throughout Africa. Also, the clamor for state police has continued to tear up the Nigerian polity as former leaders brainstormed at a one-day national dialogue on state policing organized by the House of Representatives. While some leaders backed state police, the Inspector General of Police, that's Kayode Egbetokun, disagreed, countering that Nigeria is not ready for it because it is open to abuse by governors. Some called on the government to address the nagging and welfare challenges of the Central Police before adopting state police. Before this conversation, let's now turn to former FCT Police Commissioner Lawrence Alobi, retired, and former Director DSS. That's Mike Ejiofor. Good to have you, gentlemen, on Arise News. Now, let's start with you, Mr. Alobi. The Vice President has argued that state police will bring policing closer to the grassroots and enhance community partnership in crime fighting. However, critics argue that state police would be misused by governors for political witch hunts. As a former top police officer, how can this potential for abuse of power be mitigated?
Yeah, thank you very much. Mr. Vice President's assertion is a notorious fact. You see, we've tested the federal policing system, centralized policing system, over the years since 1999. And we have seen the challenges that it has cost us. So I'm very happy that Mr. President is standing up to his office in line with Section 14B of the Constitution, provide that security and the welfare of the citizens shall be the primary purpose of government. Decentralized policing is a way out for this country. State policing. State policing will enable the police of that locality or the state to be indigenous of that state, who in terms of the challenge of language will no longer be there, challenge of culture will no longer be there, and they'll be policing their state. In fact, it was experimented in 1989 where Babangida was head of state. It was directed that officers from the rank of DSP, Deputy Inspector of Police, to a constable will move to their state of origin. I was moved from Enugu to my hometown, my local government, and I know what to experience. I know what I saved there, when I was there. So I think state policing is very, very, very important. This issue of fear, we should conquer fear. In life, it's only those who dare that succeed in life. We should conquer fear. When we say it's not longer ripe, with due respect to my IG, when shall we be ripe? We're facing the problem. Do we until we are swallowed by the problem and engulfed by the problem that will be ripe? Even a child when he's born, he learns to walk, to crawl. He falls and learns and begins to learn and he perfects his walking style system. So we can learn from that. I think this state policing is the best answer. And what we should do is that there should be a national framework for policing and law enforcement that will not delineate the powers of the federal policing and the powers of the state policing. And that also define the powers, the rules, the laws, which laws are related to the state police and which are laws related to the federal police. And again, appointment of the general police should be based on capacity and competence, even that of the commissioner of police of the state. When it is right for an appointment to be made, those prospective candidates should apply, stating their qualification, their capacity, their experience, their work experience, and so forth, because they have extended and so forth. And then they say their vision and agenda, how they can transform the police, what can they impact and transform the police. Not just what is prevalent now that is based on parochial considerations. People are appointed no capacity. People are appointed don't have experience. People are appointed just because of I know Mr. B or Mr. Dad. No. Policing is a very critical issue in this country. Like without policing, the nation will collapse. So the government, I'm happy that Mr. President has taken this squarely as one of his cardinal objective priority. I'm very, very pleased. And I think the nations, I'm happy that the former president, former head of state, Saddam and Jonathan, they are all keen or governor keen in. This is the only way out. There are so many things that we need to do. And the issue, they are fear that governors will control. We can overcome this fear where it could be saying the constitution, now the constitution will be amended. Any governor who tries to abuse his power in terms of the police should be made an offense that is impeachable in the constitution. And that will keep the governors at bay. And funding should go direct to the police, not to the governors. So that will make the police be isolated from politics and operationally. Operationally, the police should have control of what should happen in their state. Even the IG too. So I think these are maybe, as we go on, we'll bring up more. I should let me allow my colleague to also contribute.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that robust contribution. I'll come to you, Mr. Mike Ejiofor. And just as the retired police commissioner did land on the point of governors, let's paint a practical picture. Of course, we all saw what transpired last week with the former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello. And many people are using this as an example to say that, well, Governor Sododo's intervention highlights why we are not yet, the IGP's position that we're not yet mature enough for state policing, because had that event transpired in Kogi State, it meant that, well, they feel that the governor would have had all the powers necessary to ensure that his predecessor was protected, or whatever other interference he may have wanted to make in that scenario. Given the case study of what we saw transpiring last week, is this not a convincing argument against state policing for now?
It's not convincing at all, and in fact, it's a contradiction, because Yahaya Bello was escape was not facilitated by the state police. Rather, it's by the federal police and the security agencies with them. So how do you get the state police involvement in this kind of issue? I can tell you that it's only a madman that will continue to do certain things the same way and expect different results. Like the CP said, we have been coming through this issue and we are not getting it right. The best way to solve our problem, like he has also admitted, is the creation of state police. I have been an advocate of the creation of state police. The reason is the people are close to the ground. They can provide intelligence. The fear is even unfounded. For me, if my rights are abused as a citizen from the state because of the using the state police, I have every reason to go to enforce my rights. So I don't see that as a problem at all. Rather, it's the only solution. And that is why I must commend the National Assembly, especially the House of Representatives, for taking the initiative to organize this workshop. Don't also forget that the president and the 36 governors had agreed, the police council had agreed that there's need to establish the state police. And a lot of people are keen into it. I don't see the fear. The fear is unfounded, and I think the best way for us to go. Like he also rightly said, you remember in the 80s when Babangida talked about sending the policemen to their own geopolitical zones. You have this overcoming the fear of cultural, political, ethnic, and religious biases, because the language is there, people understand their language. How do you explain that you post somebody from Maiduguri or somebody from Sokoto to Bayelsa, where he doesn't understand the language, they don't have the same culture, no affinity? Before you know it, 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years, the person is transferred again before acclimatizing. But with the state police, the people are in the environment. I'll give you a typical example of the successes of localizing our police. Look at what is happening in Ondo State without overflogging it. The Amoteku has been coexisting with the federal police, the Nigerian police, giving them information, providing intelligence, and not only that, you can see that there's reduction of criminality within that geopolitical. And I must add here at this point that there is no state in Nigeria that does not have its own state police as we speak, under one vigilante or name of one task force or the other. So what we just need is to formalize this. The IG fears are unfounded, and I think we should embrace the establishment of the state police.
Well said, Mr. Ejiofor. Thank you so much. Back to you, Mr. Alobi. Now, when it comes to this matter, we know that there are concerns about disparities in funding and equipment across states that could potentially lead to uneven law enforcement capabilities. How can this be addressed to ensure uniform standards and effectiveness?
Yeah, that's very correct, because funding is key, because policing is capital intensive. And firstly, you know, they already is existing security fund. Security fund is also being given to each state, and this under the present system, it is sent to the governors who don't even utilize it, who embezzle it. But now this security fund is being sent direct to the police, and again, the federal government should have intervention funds, mainly to fund and equip the police in each state, intervention funds, in line with Section 14B of the Constitution, that the prime purpose of government is security and welfare of the people. So if that intervention fund is being provided to procure equipment, because policing in the 21st century is technically driven, technically based. In fact, state policing will help, like my colleague said, in terms of information gathering that cannot be led to actionable intelligence. Because it is when you understand the language, you can interact with the people, you build confidence, you build trust, you can bond easily with the people. Interact easily, that trust will be there, that confidence will be there. And again, even reduce corruption. Because if you are working in a local government area, you don't want to, because you know your name, your family name will be addressed. People will look at your family, and you think about your image of your family and yourself. So it has a lot of advantages. So funding, like I said, one, the security fund is there, and the federal government should also provide a mechanism that can have intervention funds to equip and fund policies to ensure that all policies are well funded. I see another thing again is that they deliberately weaken the police to make it incapable. So if the police is being strengthened, and like I said earlier, appointment should be based on parochial considerations. When there's a need to appoint an IG or commissioner of police, those property candidates should apply. Let it be seen based on capacity and competence. The person should give his agenda, his vision. How can he impact and transform the police? The committee should appoint a committee, selection committee should be made up of senior retired officers who are well knowledgeable and experienced and serving officers. Then they will now recommend to Mr. President, to the governor or Mr. President, and both for the IG and commissioner of police. If this is done, and it will mitigate this unnecessary political control. And like I said earlier, issue of governor abusing their powers by manipulating the police, controlling the police, it should start in the Constitution that any governor who is seen to have tried to abuse his power by manipulating the police against its functions, it should be impeachable offense in the Constitution, and that will put the governors on check. Okay. So I think funding, and again, they can also have police trust fund in each state.
Okay.
You know, policing is participatory in nature, like democracy. When the people themselves contribute, all the corporate organizations, business bodies and so forth contribute to the funding of the police, because the citizens are the prime beneficiary of a better policing.
Okay.
When the police don't perform well, the citizens suffer. There's increasing crime. When the police are effective and efficient, the citizens benefit. So it will be participatory. And again, they should have what I call integrating democratic policing and community policing.
Okay.
When integrate both democratic policing and community policing, it will be a framework for policing and law enforcement, and that will give the policing a direction. That will also make the police to be the lead agency, internal security.
Now, I'm glad you're talking about integration, because that's one of the recommendations by the IGP, saying that we don't really need to go to state level. Mr. Mike Ejiofor, I'm coming to you, that we don't need to go to the level of state policing. Why don't we just integrate FRSC, NSC, DC? Why don't we bring all of these? Because what the police actually needs is manpower. Why should we discard this suggestion from the IGP?
See, let's face the facts. The police does not have the capacity or capabilities to deal with our present security challenges as centralized as it is. We need to localize policing. So even if you integrate, in fact, the IG is also trying to take other people's job. Do you know the number of people in civil defense or federal road safety? And you bring all of them to management becomes almost impossible and incohesive. Now, let me tell you, take the police strength, for instance. The United Nations ratio is 1 policeman to 400. Now, what are we? We have over 220 million. We have less than 400,000 policemen. And out of that 400,000, people are retiring, they are not recruiting. Out of that, we have over 150,000 deployed to dignitaries. You have less than 200,000 to maintain law and order. You have people deployed to the judges, council chairmen, businessmen, all kinds of people. So where do you have the police to work? So I believe that this issue of the state police will fill in that gap. Even if you have the federal police, they fill in the gap, providing information which will be converted to actionable intelligence to assist the federal police. It's not issue of rivalry, it's not issue of who takes charge, but I believe that if they work harmoniously, our security challenges will be brought down, and there's no society without criminality. So we are not saying we are going to eliminate it or it's going to be the end of every security challenges in the country. But let's give it a try. Let people stop worrying, stop having fears that the state police will be used to. I'm not unmindful of the fact, too, that it can be abused. And I ask, is the present federal police as considered not being abused? People who are not entitled to policemen, they are giving policemen, they do all kinds of things. So every law, that's why you have the law, every law is subject to abuse. And Absolutely. That's why, at the end of the day, there must be checks and balances.
Gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. We'd like to thank you both for your insightful discussion, and thank you for joining us here on Newsday. We've been speaking with former FCT Police Commissioner Lawrence Alobi, retired, and former Director DSS Mike Ejiofor. Thank you both. It's been a pleasure.